All right, we're back. Welcome, everyone. This is Howdy Partner, and this is a show where we like to highlight some of the cool things our partners are doing today with AWS. And so I'll be your host today. My name is Andrew Park, and I'm a Partner Solutions Architect here with AWS. And a lot of my focus is working with new friends working on cool technology. That's basically what I tell people. And today I have two new friends that I'm really excited to introduce, Marina and Laura. Do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
You go first, Marina.
Sure. Thank you, Andrew. As well as Andrew, I work at AWS. I'm partner solution architect. The difference between me and Drink, I work directly, assigned it as partners, like closely, and I work with Pulumi. And I'm super excited again to be here with Laura. She's cool. Let's follow this here, and have some fun. And I'll be supporting with any different question, is pointed to some documentation if you need, answering some questions, and so on. So feel free to chat with us anytime. All right, it's yours. Come on.
All right. And my name is Laura Santa Maria. I am a developer advocate here at Pulumi. And I mean, here, like my home office here, just in case we're curious. So I'm pretty excited to be here. I also am someone who is very good at breaking everything. So just saying that yesterday wasn't me. So hug ups to all the AWS folks that had to deal with that yesterday. But got to get that elephant out of the room first. So I promise, though, I wasn't the one who broke it.
No worries. All good. All good. So today we have a lot to cover. So we're talking about things like infrastructure as code, this crazy thing called the AWS Cloud Control API. And then Laura will be walking us through how to leverage some of these things using Pulumi, which I'm really excited for. And if you guys haven't tuned in before, we've actually had Pulumi on the show a handful of times. And so I think this is actually Pulumi's 5th stream with us. So we're actually super excited to have you back on.
Wow.
But aside from that, if this is your first time tuning into this particular stream, we are live Mondays and Wednesdays at 2 o'clock Pacific. And we're always looking to have new partners on the show. And if you've seen me on the show before, you see this little logo here. I like to focus on things like containers and open source. So it kind of falls under my realm of things I like to focus on. So with that said, make sure to follow the channel. We post updates pretty frequently, and we also include our schedule on the AWS Twitch channel. So if there's other shows you're interested in, everything will be right there. But aside from that, what do you guys think about giving everyone kind of a rundown on what infrastructure as code is, why it's important, and why you should use it? What do you guys think about that? Yeah?
That sounds good.
Cool.
I guess I can kind of start. So,
all right.
What is infrastructure as code? Why do you want to use it? And why does it matter? Infrastructure as code is really a way to programmatically ensure that every time you deploy your code, it is the same. So every time you deploy your infrastructure, so it's taking the infrastructure that you have and saying that instead of, going into the CLI and manually saying, okay, give me this, now give me this, now give me this, and running through playbooks, instead you're running an application, basically like a program that just says, hey, when I run this program, give me all of these things all tied together, and it's more repeatable. It means that multiple people can run it and not necessarily have anything different. So no one's got some little bit of tribal knowledge sitting up there about this one little quirk in the CLI that if I run it this way, it works. If I run it this way, it doesn't work. We like to talk about infrastructure as software or cloud engineering a lot at Pulumi. And basically that means that take the same code and you can test it. You can go through and ensure that everything runs the exact same way you want. And we'll get a chance to see a little bit of other reasons why it's really good to have that code running together with everything else. But that's kind of the really, really short and sweet. What is infrastructure as code? Why does it matter? And why should you care? So hopefully that gave a little bit. And if anybody else wants to add anything else, that's perfectly fine. I believe in very, very short explanations that make sense really quickly. And then
that makes sense to me.
Talk my ear off.
Wait, so based on what you just said, so basically, are you telling me that I don't have to live in the AWS management console and just start clicking around for hours at a time just to provision my infrastructure? Is that basically what you're telling me?
Yes.
That's, I'll tell you what.
So I'm one of those people, like I've done dev, I've done ops, I've done a lot of ops, and I am not an ops person that's going to tell you that going into the UI is anathema. Absolutely not. I think it's perfectly fine if you're comfortable in the UI to go do something there faster. Okay, sometimes you need to, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. But being able to run it here as code is better than going through, clicking through, and manually adding it. Because the
100%.
other thing is you also get that reminder of what you set. So I don't know how many times I've done this where like I'll have provisioned a set of infrastructure and then I'll go, okay, like I'm talking like years ago, I'll provision a set of infrastructure and then I'll say, okay, I need to do the same thing again because I'm doing an update. And my brain goes, wait a minute, what did I do? How did I set that thing up? No,
Sure.
I have the record here as code. Whereas before, sometimes like I'd forget a piece and I would cause lots of incidences that were apparently highly entertaining. Yes, and console recorder, you are not alone to also be the one doing the console recorder. I have no shame. I will happily admit that this is something that I've done. So a lot of the stuff that I do now is coming from the school of learning it by breaking it more often than not. So that's how I know it works.
And Nora, probably we can explain a little bit why, like, what's the difference, like, between using Pulumi versus like in other infrastructure codes, and what is cloud engineering specifically?
Yeah. So Pulumi itself, I like to tell people that the biggest things about Pulumi is that it makes the cloud make more sense to more people. And now, why do I say that? A lot of people are starting to understand, like, to be able to read a program, whatever language it is. Now, I happen to be a Python person. Not everybody's into Python. You can yell at me in the comments. That's
I'm a fan
fine.
of Python.
I'll heckle
great.
right back at you. It's perfectly fine to heckle me. But when it comes to that, like I can show someone my code and they can go and read it and go, oh, so this piece is connected to this piece, which is connected to this piece. If you've ever tried to do the same thing, except trying to explain it to people in diagrams, do you start feeling like somebody who's just like making all these connections to everything and it's getting a little wild and crazy? That's one of the benefits to me for infrastructure as code, especially Pulumi specifically. And the reason that I say that is that Pulumi uses any programming language that you're comfortable with. We have 5 officially supported languages, and then there's some unofficial community supported languages that we have. So the official languages are TypeScript, JavaScript, Python, Go, and C#. I obviously will be doing stuff in Python today. But what that does is that it also allows you to use any of the libraries that you might use, have your code running alongside it. You can do testing of your infrastructure. So if you want to unit test your infrastructure before you actually use it in production, you can do that. That's one of the big things about Pulumi, is being able to use all of the tools that you're familiar with doing any kind of development work with Pulumi itself. That's probably one of the biggest ones that I hear. Other, like, you can use if then, for loops, all that fun stuff. So any kind of looping type system, you can do that with Pulumi because that's part of your programming language. It just makes sense. We do not have Rust yet. I saw that comment come through. We do not have Rust yet. I kind of wish it did, but we're not there yet in terms of officially supported languages. So, but cloud engineering as a whole, like kind of zooming up from infrastructure as code, cloud engineering is the idea of taking software engineering principles and engineering principles in general and applying those to your infrastructure. So that might be, don't repeat yourself. That's a classic. Dry code is a classic thing from software engineering, but also the idea of, automation and ensuring that other people can repeat what you're doing very quickly and easily. That's part of engineering. Also, just having design documents and thinking through all of those questions as you go through building something. That's all engineering in general. And that really is what cloud engineering is all about. What else can I tell you about cloud engineering? I'm just trying to think. I did
Bringing
a whole video on
DevOps
this.
together with developers.
Yeah.
I
So
was
I mean,
there.
so DevOps as a concept has morphed quite a bit over the years, and we could get into so many fun discussions and arguments about what is DevOps really.
We
What
could
is it
spend a
now?
whole
What
session on
was
this.
it? What was it? What is it? How does it work now? But really, the original idea was to say that let's get everyone talking from the very beginning and bring their expertise from wherever they are to the very, very beginning of a project. Rather than saying like, okay, the ops team only comes in when dev is done and they throw their code over the wall virtually, or maybe not so virtually, I guess. I can't imagine someone throwing books of code over the wall, or punch cards. That'd be really funny. I need a video of that quick. So instead of doing that and having like an ops team come in later, or a security team, or QA, or even, like business and marketing, everybody comes in at the beginning of a project to say, here are the things that I need. Here are the things that we need to talk about. Here's something I've noticed in the past that we need to fix before we go any further. And getting it out, discussing it, and figuring it out. So that's like the original idea of DevOps. Pardon me. To me, cloud engineering is a semi-logical addition to that, I guess, or the next thing in that sense. Except it's really saying that this is an engineering discipline. It isn't something that's kind of an afterthought. It's part of the world that we're in right now. So let's go and build something together. Let's make sure that the devs can come in and understand the infrastructure that the ops teams might have built, or the ops teams are building platforms that the devs build on top of, and they can request infrastructure through their code that just builds it up and runs it, and builds up ephemeral environments for testing or whatever that might be. So that's kind of how I look at cloud engineering and DevOps, and bringing all of that together and kind of saying we're all in this together, trying to understand this gigantic thing known as the cloud, and not the white puffy things that are outside. We're talking about these gigantic masses of computing power that we can't really conceive of any longer because it's just so big.
Yeah, and I think one thing I'll add too is I know, like, when I was first learning about infrastructure as code, the only two options you had were JSON, YAML, and then whatever Terraform uses. And so yeah, that's what it is, HCL. And so, I was writing my first template in JSON, and it was miserable. Like, there was just so many linting errors I kept running into it. It was just absolutely miserable. So, to your point, the fact that you can actually define your templates using your favorite programming language, I think is extremely powerful. And not only just that, but it enables so many more people to be more interested in the actual infrastructure itself, right? And so I think you brought up a good point in that, now your ops and your developers can actually work harmoniously together without having to your point, throw books over the wall, right? I think it's a powerful thing.
It is. It absolutely is. And like, I don't know how many like web dev type folks who maybe didn't really understand how it all was put together for them. Sure. They just knew like their front end bit. Now it's starting to make sense, and they're able to find it and figure it out. And so that means they can do stuff at home while they're like trying out code or trying something else. They can go learn something, and then they can come, and when a team is explaining what they're going to do, they can say, oh, well, I need this for my app because this is why. And suddenly they can have a conversation, not just be told how 100%. It works, which is fantastic to me. So
there you go.
That's how I look at it anyway.
Let's take this a step further. So, as you're defining these templates and as you're defining your environments, realistically speaking, those templates and those environments start to get more complex as you start to get more requirements, as you start adding more folks to the team, and, et cetera, right? Mm-hmm. And so, at least from my experience, the question has always been, well, is there a more efficient way to be able to control all these APIs for my ever-growing complex environment, right? And so there's this crazy thing called the AWS Cloud Control API. And when I first, because this came out not too long ago. I think it came out
October.
in October of this year. Mm-hmm. But the idea is that you have like a standard set of APIs to now control all the APIs that may live within your environment, your infrastructure as code templates, And it just makes it much easier to manage all of those services through a standard set of APIs now. Because before, you'd have to write like custom scripts, you'd have to write your own programs to manage these APIs, and it just got really complex for really no reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this concept is very simple but very powerful at the same time. And as you'll see in Laura's demo today, you'll kind of see this in action. But the Cloud Control API is a very, very powerful thing that folks should really take a look into, just because, you know, even if you're like a small startup just really getting off the ground, like if you leverage something like this at the start, it'll make your life much easier as you start adding components to your environment. Laura and Marina, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but for me, like this like blew my mind when I first started about it.
Yeah, and we have another question, Elsa.
Sure.
Laura, you can take, or I can comment on that. What separates Pulumi from CDK, and is it free, or what's the catch?
That's a great question.
We can talk about.
And Andrew, that's also a very good question. So let me kind of back up a little bit and first answer Andrew's question and say, like, to me, one of the really great things about having an API now for AWS is that I have APIs for other tools. So it's not just like all of the AWS stuff. If I want to use Datadog, for example, there's an API, which means like I can write code. I can write code for that and for AWS resources and smush them all together and say, like, okay, here's all my stuff. It just works. So
100%.
that's something, and that actually gets to what separates Pulumi from the CDK. Don't get me wrong, the CDK is awesome if you are mostly working in AWS and like that's kind of where you are. If you're using a ton of other tools alongside of it, so like I might, and I'm just like picking names mostly based off of where our booth was at reInvent and what booths I could see. So like this isn't necessarily saying like these are the things you need. I saw Datadog and PagerDuty and Snowflake. Like I can take all of those and write to their APIs, write the same piece of code along with all of my AWS resources and have it all be together. Whereas with the CDK, like you're kind of needing to use multiple pieces to make this work. Whereas with Pulumi, you're just using Pulumi as a tool to be able to work with all of these APIs. So that's like kind of one of the differences with the CDK. Another one is Pulumi doesn't actually compile down to CloudFormation. We compile down directly and connect into the resource model when we're using AWS native, which is our version of the Cloud Control API. Just basically, what do we connect to?
Yes.
So we don't have that intermediate step, which can be good. Unless you really, really want that CloudFormation, then it can be bad. Kind of depends on what you need. Yeah. You're like, no, please, no, please, no. So that's kind of a little bit of information about Pulumi versus CDK. If you're really curious about more, I'm more than happy to kind of dig in. But I mean, AWS's CDK is also good for depending on what you need.
And
is it free? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, and there is a good comparison also at Pulumi documentation. It's all like about what exactly you need. There is a lot of, we cannot really deny it, but there's a lot of companies which multi-cloud as well. So we can talk about the price as well. And there's addition, how about like state management? I think Laura can cover it as well.
Let me talk a little bit about state management too, but I do want to mention, so like with Pulumi, we have what we call like the forever free part, which is you want to go build with it, go for it. The stuff that's paid is more like I need to be able to do SAML, role-based access control, RBAC. I need to be able to do like these enterprise things for my entire org. That's the kind of stuff that's paid for. But if you want to use it to build your own infrastructure, go for it. Like that's part of the free part is free. It's also open source, which brings me to the question of state management. The Pulumi itself, if you're using the managed platform, the managed software as a service, there's what I'm looking for. That SaaS product is what manages state. We manage the state files for you. The Pulumi CLI is connecting to what we call the service. The service is your state management system. The CLI itself is doing all of the connection to the various other APIs and CLIs and things like that. APIs really. But Pulumi itself, the CLI itself, is actually doing all of the conversions and then telling the state files, okay, here's the current state of the system. So you do not manage state yourself unless you are using the open source version, which is the self-hosted version. If you are self-hosting, you decide not to create a Pulumi account and you just want to use the open source version, yes, you are managing state files yourself. So that's like the one little caveat I want to put in there, because somebody says it sounds like Terraform type state management. If you're managing your own state files right now, and you wanted to continue managing your state files, you could do the self-hosted version. If you want to not have to manage those state files anymore and not have to manage your own state, that's what the app.pulumi.com is all about.
I can take the next one. Is Pulumi SaaS FedRAMP approved? We're actually like working on that right now. We started to have this ask, so that's going to happen. And feel free. I don't know if you see any of my contact information, but write down to Pulumi if it's a question. We definitely looking to do it in early 2022.
Actually, on that note, Laura, do you guys have a public roadmap that people can follow and submit issues to?
We do. Surprise. So if you go to github.com/Pulumi, the project that's there, we are one of the first users of GitHub's new public roadmap system.
Awesome.
So you can go to our public roadmap right there and go through and vote on things that you think you need right now. You just give it a little thumbs up emoji response. That emoji response counts towards some of the stuff we go into when we're deciding what features are next on our roadmap. So you can get a sense of where we are, things like that. So that's the GitHub link there on the stream. But again, it's github.com/Pulumi. And if you can't spell Pulumi, by the way, it's Pulumi. I've heard very many pronunciations and very many spellings that are highly entertaining. But that is how it's spelled. It's on my hat. It's also there on this thing. But if you're just listening, that way you can hear how I'm spelling it. That might be kind of helpful. It is on my hat. See right there.
There you go.
Let's see. There's some more questions here in the chat. So quickly back to the free version. State management using S3 or DynamoDB. Can I elaborate a little bit? So I haven't tried it yet. I have to admit, this is like month 4 for me at Pulumi. So there are some things I haven't tried doing myself. So I can tell you in theory, but I haven't done it myself to tell you what I broke yet. So caveat. But you can host your state files on S3. So it is more of a object storage than putting it into a database. So that's kind of the difference there. Can you put it into a database? I have no idea. That might be fun to attempt to break it. If you do it before I get a chance to attempt to break it, let me know how that went. Because now I'm curious.
I can also confirm. I've done this in S3, so it definitely works. DynamoDB is interesting though. Like that isn't something I've thought about. So maybe that's a feature stream to come because that would be interesting to see.
Yeah. Maybe next time we'll have to just attempt to break everything. I think that'd be fun.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with breaking things.
I'm very good at that part. And so I do want to just say, like, is there a good workshop tutorial with a bake-off with CDK, things like that? Yes, there's lots of wonderful things out there. There is a workshop link. I think it's aws.workshops.io.
Yeah, I have it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll drop it in the chat, or you can @ me on Twitter later or something and say, what was that again? But there's like a little thing that lets you go through and like try everything. And if you try everything there, I think everything there is AWS Classic, which is our original AWS provider, which we're going to see how we convert code back and forth today. Pardon me. That's going to be part of the fun today is talking about what happens if you want to use both and try to move around. That would be the thing to test it against. So, but if not, I know there's also like some workshops we have coming up on AWS and stuff like that might be worthwhile to go to.
Yeah, actually, on that note, we used to run workshops on a monthly basis, and so hopefully we'll get those up and running in 2022. So definitely on the lookout for that, for sure.
Yeah, there's actually an AWS workshop next week for Pulumi on the 14th. I don't forget exactly when. We were talking about it at reInvent, so 2 of my colleagues are going to be running that, getting started with AWS workshop, so it might be worthwhile to go to if you are curious.
Yes, we
And
can.
yes, we will be dropping links. I admit that because I am very, very chatty, I'm generally really bad about leaving links in the comments. But I really appreciate that Marina's like on it, like, I'll get it. They'll
I'll
go in
get
there.
it
So
right there.
we will get them before the end of the stream. How about that? That gives us like an
I'm
hour and a
working on
half.
that. Give
That
me
gives us, like,
just a little time.
No, you're good. You're good. So anyway,
Cool.
if you haven't figured it out, I
Actually,
have no problem like learning in public. So I'm gonna probably be telling you, you know what? I don't know. That's a great question. Let's go figure it out. So
the last question I have, and I think just because I think it's helpful to understand when you're trying to decide which infrastructure as code provider you want to go with, is could you talk to us a little bit about how Pulumi manages drift detection?
drift detection. So that's a great question. I don't exactly know.
No worries.
It's okay. I believe that is something that is currently on the roadmap, like an
Okay.
actual automatic drift detection. There is some like Pulumi commands we can run on the CLI that checks for things not matching up and like refreshes our data, but that's more like a manual call versus
Okay, that
automatically
makes sense.
detecting state changes.
Right.
Good question though. I do know it's on the roadmap because I remember hearing about it.
Yeah, I think we touched it in another workshop and conversation. I'll double check on that. I don't have this question right now, but I have to put it in my comments because it's coming several times already. Yeah, and I'm posting right now links.
Yeah.
Nice.
And there's a question about, I assume there is a Pulumi plan, like a Terraform plan. Not exactly. This is not the same kind of system. So we have what's called Pulumi Preview. So you can preview what changes you're about to do if you want to do that. And you'll see when we actually go through and start some code up. If I run Pulumi up, which is how you update or stand up infrastructure, you get an automatic preview, or you can just run Pulumi Preview. So those are two ways to kind of see what's coming. But Pulumi runs on like an asynchronous model in terms of like it. So let me back up. If you're familiar with JavaScript and TypeScript, you might not be, but that's okay. JavaScript, which is what Pulumi is partially built on, has the concept of asynchronous communication. So async await are the two pieces. Async, Pulumi has asynchronous waiting for resources. So you can tell something like, okay, I want you to provision these resources. And what Pulumi does, it'll say, okay, what's dependent on what? I'm going to wait to run these pieces until I'm sure this piece is running. And then the next piece, and then the next piece. So because of that, you don't have to run Pulumi a couple times to get all of the resource information. You instead run it once and it kind of goes through and starts getting you the outputs over time. So it doesn't actually do it right away. Hopefully that makes sense a little bit more. I'm not exactly the best at Terraform. I will 100% admit that. I think it can be a really great tool. I prefer Pulumi. That might be a little obvious. But, so.
No worries. And then just real quick, just because we're about 30 minutes in,
Okay.
if you guys are now just tuning in, again, this is Howdy Partner. This is a show where we like to highlight a lot of the cool things that our partners are doing. And I am with two of my friends, Marina and Laura. And today we'll be talking about infrastructure as code, the AWS Cloud Control API. And I believe Laura has a cool demo for us to really demonstrate how you can leverage all these things with Pulumi. So with that said, make sure to follow the channel because, again, we are here every Monday and Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out.
All right. If y'all are ready, we're going to go try some code.
I think we're
Ready
ready
to do this?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So here's the fun thing. I do actually, as I'm clicking all the buttons to share things, I do like building things live sometimes. So basically, I have a bunch of comments and we're going to figure out how do we make this thing work. So a couple things to note. I've already run what's called Pulumi new. And what you do when you're creating a Pulumi project, you create a directory. That's what holds your project itself. And then you do a command called Pulumi new inside of that directory. And Pulumi new lets you pick templates to kind of structure everything. But in terms of Python, we end up with 4 main files along with a virtual environment. Now, if you want to use a different virtual environment provider, like pipenv, things like that, there are ways to do that. I am using the basic VN here just because, one, that's what's built in, and two, if you're not familiar with Python, this is what you probably got started with. So I'm trying not to take a lot of shortcuts here so that people can follow what I'm up to. But there are 4 main things that come up. One is the __ main __.py. Whenever you hear a Python person say __, they actually say dunder. So if I do that by accident, I apologize in advance. But dunder just means 2 underscores, then the word, then 2 underscores. So dunder main dunder.py. This is the main entry point for Pulumi. If you're familiar with Python, you might be saying, hey, but we don't put live code in that. This is just to get you started. You are more than welcome to break it out into multiple files, do your typical importing, all of that fun stuff. We're going to stick to the very, very simple version to get started here. Mifflin. I don't know Mifflin, but I've always heard it dunder. So anyway, along with that, we do have YAML. I'm sorry. There is some YAML. This is the Pulumi configuration file. So this is the overall file. This just tells you about
Laura,
the
sorry,
specific...
not to cut you off. Could you make your screen just a little bit bigger?
A little bit bigger. Okay. Because I thought, let's
So
see.
your terminal's coming across fine. The code itself is just a little small.
All right, let's do this. Better?
Yes.
All right, let's sneak.
And then just let us know in the chat if you guys need us to make the screen bigger.
Yeah. Whoop. Maybe. There we go. Each file I have to zoom in on. That's why you can't see it.
Oh, okay, no worries.
So my apologies in advance. You get a really, really close-up view just of some CSV right there. Anyway, so the good thing to know. So Pulumi.yaml, this is the Pulumi.yaml file. And that file just has some basic details. So you can see I'm using the Python runtime. It's the virtual environment is with venv. There's a little description that you get. All of this is stuff that you set when you do Pulumi new. It gives you some details on it. Then there's something we call the stack configuration file. Now, before I go any further, what's a stack? Let's, if I can find my mouse, there we go. I found my mouse. So we're going to take, if it wants to come up here, I have a little image for you. This is called the Pulumi model. So let me present real quick so that we can just see. This is the Pulumi model of the way we think about resources. Resources being any specific object on the cloud. So we have a project, and that project is the big unit, basically, of a Pulumi system. The project has a program, which is our code. And inside of our code, we have resources. So any of these objects built on the cloud, so like an S3 bucket is an object. A Lambda function is an object. An IAM role is an object. You can pass inputs and outputs to those 2 pieces. And the inputs going in, obviously, are the arguments to the variables, things like that. We'll get a chance to see what that looks like. The outputs might be something like the address of an S3 bucket. You won't know that until the S3 bucket is created. So that's an output. Those outputs can then be fed to other resources as you go. So that's why you see this kind of like the dragon eating its tail methodology of where like this resource feeds to this resource, feeds to this resource. Yay. So that's the program. The program defines an ideal state, basically, like what you want your system to end up as. Then we have the concept of a stack. A stack you can think of as an environment. So we might have a dev environment, a QA environment, a prod environment. You might have 20 different QA environments, one for each pull request that you're running. So that's what a stack is in Pulumi terminology. Reason I want to bring that one up, and where's my escape button? The reason I want to bring that one up is we get these files called pulumi.whatever.yaml, and that holds the configuration for that specific stack or environment. And my chair is slowly sliding down. Let me get that back again. There we go. Gotta love those comedic interludes. So in this case, I have US East 1 as my region already configured for this specific project. So we will see this change a little bit as we go, depending on what we decide to do. And then the last one is just your requirements.txt, because this is Python, your standard requirements file that has all of your different bits and pieces. So that's what happens when you do Pulumi now. I've already done this for us just because I wanted to have a nice clean system that we could start from. But if you were to come to one of our workshops, we go into this in a lot more detail. But let's just get started. So I've imported Pulumi. I've imported what we call the AWS Classic provider, which is what we started with. And then I've also imported AWS Native. Now, AWS Native is the cloud controlled API version of Pulumi's library. So this is the one we're going to have a lot of fun with today. Let's start out by making a simple S3 bucket. Like this is like the really, really, really simple part. So believe it or not, we're going to call it bucket because I like buckets. So we're going to call it AWS S3. Now you can notice that I'm getting all of my autocompletes. This is an exciting thing because if you've ever tried to remember what everything is as you're typing, it can be really, really nice to have all of this in here, and it's going to start telling me, what do you need to fill in? Don't forget this piece. Don't forget that piece. Yay. So I'm just going to call this bucket because that is the class, and we're going to give it a name. We always give something a name in Pulumi. So I'm just going to call this Laura, and I always prefix it with my name on demos because I'm weird. And we're going to call this weather data because I have some weather data for us because I am a gigantic weather nerd. Now we have our bucket. Now, what else do you need with a bucket? Bucket policy. Okay, so let's get a little bucket policy going here. I'll just fill it in, don't worry. And I'm going to break it as we go. Now, here's the thing about this. What you're going to notice, if I can type, S3, there we go. There is a bucket policy now, which is new. I was about to tell you that we were going to have to use Classic, but hey, isn't that exciting? We don't have to do that. And then we're going to call this Laura Weather Data Bucket Policy because I am explicit over implicit in case you're a Python person. That makes sense. We're going to say the bucket is the bucket ID, bucket.id. And this is something that will come out from... this is an output that you're going to get, so it'll just be good. And in terms of best practice defaults, do you really need to spell everything out? No, you did not need to sit here and go through and type everything out. Yes, there are things you can copy. I am being overly redundant in everything. I could literally be copy pasting from elsewhere, or I could have imported a different template. All of our templates are at github.com/pulumi/templates, I think. Or if you just search in the Pulumi org on GitHub, the word templates, you'll find that repo. That has all of your templates. So if you're deploying a specific thing, you can do templates. One thing that is really nice, by the way, is that let's say that you as a company do this all the time. Now, why you would have an S3 bucket and a bucket policy as like your thing, I have no idea. But let's pretend you do. You can create basically a library, we call them component resources, that say this is the happy path for building how this thing works. You can build that, package that up, and then share that with the rest of your company. And they can just import that, and it's done. It's magic. So you don't have to constantly be redoing this. You might see this with people doing this for like IAM roles or something like that, where it's just a pretty standard like thing that you want to make sure everybody uses the same system. You can do it that way. I like that kind of magic. It's lots of fun. But I'm being overly explicit today, so we're going to keep being overly explicit, and I'm going to be keeping typing. But again, keep heckling me in the chat because I am watching it, and probably driving you all crazy while I'm doing so. But let's keep going. So we're going to have a policy that we're about to apply. Policy equals. Oh, of course, that's not on this one, is it? Yeah. Bucket policy. So I do want to say that if you aren't familiar with doing development work, let's say you're an ops person and this is kind of new, learning how to read API docs is really helpful. So, as a former technical writer, I'm going to subject you all to going through this. Let's go do that because it'll be fun. So, we have something called the Pulumi registry, which is fairly new. And this has all of the various packages that you could possibly be needing, using, pulling down. So we can see we have a bunch of various AWS stuff, but this AWS native is what we're looking at right now. So let's go take a look. We have some overview, installation configuration, all the fun stuff. We're going here to the API docs, and let me make this, pardon me, a little bit bigger. And yell at me if you can't see that. So we need to go see what happened to our bucket policy. So let's go take a look at the data on that. So S3, Pulumi registry over NPM. If you are making a custom resource provider, which is what we call our packages, our resource providers, if you're making a custom one, you are publishing to NPM. The registry lets you, right now, the registry lets you surface that to other people. Things might get updated in the next couple months. I know there's a lot of active work going on registry, so I can't talk for the future. I can only talk for right now, and that's the difference between the two. Someday, maybe, hopefully, possibly, I'd love to see it where you can get a private registry for your company, kind of like you can get Artifactory, and be able to have people discover component resources there. So we'll see. That might be coming. Go check out the public roadmap and find more information there. But let's go take a look here at our bucket. And that's just bucket. This is one of those cases where I have a feeling it's actually in Classic. So let's go back to AWS Classic for this one just to be sure. And I have all this information. So then I have policy equals, and we're going to do something called bucket-arn, which is the resource name, .apply. Now, what is that? This is how Pulumi actually takes things that aren't created yet and applies things. So whenever you have these outputs, remember how I said that outputs don't necessarily actually they're not created right away. You have to wait till the Pulumi program goes through and then it starts to create your outputs as you go. Sometimes you need those outputs in your code. And that's what the supply does. Is it says, okay, you're going to get this output soon. When you get it, you're going to be applying it here. So that's the 5-second version of what apply means. There have been people who have written all kinds of articles and things about how Pulumi apply works. I'm not going to be that person that goes through that right now. So this is a Lambda, not your AWS Lambda. This is Python's Lambda. ARN, so we're doing a JSON.dumps. All right, and one thing I need to do, because I am importing that, is I need to import JSON because we're going to need it. What this does is it encodes whatever I'm sending as a string to JSON that then gets sent onward to AWS. So that's what this piece is. And you know what? Rather than making you all watch this, here we go. There we go. So this might look a little bit familiar with you. In this case, I'm just letting everybody get access to this thing because hopefully there's not a lot of you on there that's about to try to hack my bucket. This might look familiar. This is your standard policy type document that you might be putting in from anywhere. That's because this is just the best thing to send to AWS. This is what makes sense. So that's why it looks like this. And then finally, where am I? Right there. Cool. And we have some options to add in here. And in this case, we're going to say Pulumi.resource options. And I'm just going to say that the parent of this is our bucket, which is this bucket up here. So this is just a very, very basic S3 bucket. Now let's actually upload the file. this is the cool part, is that we can actually use standard code to be able to do that. You don't have to go through and write anything fancy. So I do an import OS, or wait, I can do the alphabet. I am a little bit of a stickler for PEP8, sorry. Order matters to me. So in this case, we're going to say file path equals os.path.join. And what do I want to call this? We don't really need the actual path itself. We just need the file. And I'm just trying to think, how do I want to grab this? I'm doing it a really, really awkward way, and I apologize. I'm just thinking about how I want to actually do this.
Hey, no worries. I mean, you're doing this live, so whatever works.
Coding it live, yay!
Yeah.
Let's actually give this a new directory just because it makes my life easier. We're going to call this weather. And in the weather directory, I'm going to move my weather data into there. Yep, refactor, thank you. Yeah, I know. We don't need to open it. Thank you. All right, so. We're going to call that weather dir for weather directory, and it's just going to be called weather. And for file in this weather directory, I want to join weather directory and the file name. Because then this way we can also add any other data into that directory. Like if I come up with more weather data, I can just go dump it into there and it'll move over. And then I want to actually ask for the type of the file. So my types, because I need that later. If you're familiar with Python, you might know what this is. But let's go here, and it actually comes out as a tuple. Yeah, doing it live. I will say that I don't know how many times I've actually done live coding. But one of the things that I always learned was have a ton of tools at your disposal because you're going to mess up at some point. In my case, we'll probably mess up on this a few times. It'll be fun.
There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
And file path, here we go. So we have our MIME type and things like that. And this is just going to be an object that I want to create here. So, and I think we don't have bucket object yet. So because this is so new, because the control API is so new, there's still a lot of work happening to import all of those AWS resources to it. So this is why you'll see me switch back and forth from AWS to AWS Classic. The AWS Classic system, in case you're wondering how that was built, underneath Terraform itself, the community had built out an entire bridge system across a ton of different providers. And so in this case, we're using the same bridge system that Terraform was built on top of with Pulumi for some of these bridged providers. That's what we call them, bridged providers. So in this case, this is the classic is the bridged version. We definitely much prefer the Cloud Control API version now because we get direct access to the resource model. So you get pretty much once everything is done, you'll get direct access to any new features very, very quickly, which is the most exciting part because it's already in your cloud's resource model. So that's a very, very exciting thing. Where was I? Bucket object.
Yeah, while you type, and I can add it as basically when we release Cloud Control API, AWS promised that typically most of the features and services will be available at day 0 as soon as it's generally available for everyone, and it's internal commitment of AWS teams to provide that. There's a Cloud Control API available resources, and Pulumi just reusing that. So it's not limitation of Pulumi, like putting it right now. It's a limitation that we still like onboarding some of our like services in. But the final one commitment is like by the end of like days, like we're going to have absolutely all features and services supported via one API, which simplifies life a lot. Yeah.
Pretty cool, isn't it?
But it's easy. You can use a classic native providers, and they're like in the same code. You're not limited with anything right now. So it's just if you're looking for use something new, cool things right away, it's like that's where we're targeting in.
So as you can tell, I borked something already. What happens if I take you out? Nope. Oh, ops, not ops. See, this is why we really, really enjoy having our IDE tools. It makes my life a lot easier because I know there's things that I break on a regular basis. So, okay, this thing's happy. So basically, what this does is it says I'm going to go crawl this directory called weather, and I want you to look for any files that are there. Get me the path for them. Guess what kind of type they are. So, like what encoding they have, what type they are, all that fun stuff. And then take this and shove this up into the bucket that I'm giving you an ID for. And I want you to take the file. So that's you're here at line 39. Take the file, go to this bucket ID. We're going to call this a file asset. What that means is derp. I can do this today. A file asset is just like a file in any kind of way that is something that is going to get shared out. There's file assets, object asset. There's a bunch of assets that you can pull out with Pulumi. So if we went through and we could actually go take a look at what all those are in the console. But yeah, so that's what the file asset is. Content type, it just tells it, hey, this is this kind of file because the S3 bucket needs to know what kind of file it is that you're sending it. And it gives me some options just to say, again, this is dependent on that parent bucket. So that's what this piece is. Now, pretty simple. What do you think? Should we go try it out?
Let's do it.
One thing I'm forgetting, though, I do need to tell us where this bucket is. So we're going to do something called a Pulumi export. Now, the Pulumi export, bucket name. We're just going to call it bucket name. We'll find that easy later. Where's my mouse? Actually, no, I don't need to call it a name. I just need the URL. So Pulumi will export data for you to the CLI, to your terminal, to be able to let you see what's where. So in this case, I just want the bucket name. And we'll use that in a bit. So bucket name. See how it pre-populated for me. And Pulumi.export. If I can type, that would be lovely. All right. I'm just going to serenade y'all. I hope you appreciate it. So now I'm a Vim person. Argue with me later, but I still use all of my Vim key bindings on my IDE because I'm a nerd. So we're going to run Pulumi up. Now, Pulumi up is going to do some very exciting things. Let's hope, cross your fingers, that this actually works because I remember to sign in. It did. Okay, cool. So I did remember to sign in. That's exciting. Oh, no, I didn't. I actually forgot to give it a region because that might be helpful. So this is, again, this config. I didn't actually tell that to my system. So we do need to do what's called a Pulumi config set AWS region. US East 1, I think is what I want.
Yeah, I think I posted it in the beginning.
There we go. Okay. Pulumi up. Someone's telling dad jokes. I'm highly entertained. All right. What did I do here? I know I've done this before. What's the resource I need to put in there? Hold, please. We're going to go figure this out real quick. So, app.pulumi.com. This is what's called the Pulumi console. You can tell I have a lot of projects running. Please ignore the rest of them. Each one of these purple things is a stack. Nope. There it is. Because I'm actually running off of the same thing. Where are my configurations? Oh, right. We had this happen last time. There's AWS and AWS native are two things. So I have to remember to set the region properly. So we're going to also set this one AWS dash native. Doing it live. Here we go. I'm guessing someone brought a bot in here, which I'm highly entertained by said bot. I promise I didn't break it. It wasn't me. Anyway, so yeah, so here we go. This is what I was saying before about how when you run Pulumi up, it actually gives you a preview first. So it tells you, here's the, I'm about to point to my screen like you can see my finger. Let me use my mouse. That would be good. We have a stack that's getting stood up. And here's our bucket that we wanted to create. And here's the bucket policy and the bucket object. Now you'll notice that it says AWS native or AWS. Remember that we're using both here. So here's AWS Classic, which is AWS. And AWS is AWS native because I didn't name things the same way that Pulumi names things, which might be a little confusing. If we took a look at the details, pardon me, we actually get some really interesting things. You can see the objects that we are creating. So URN, resource number. This says that we're on the AWS Howdy December 2021 project with the dev stack. And I am saying create a bucket. Here's some details on that bucket. Here's that bucket name that we gave it. You'll notice that there is a number attached. This is really important. When you were when you're creating any of these objects, we don't want something to collide with something in another stack. So let's say you have a pull request, and every time your pull request runs, you get a new set of objects because it's building infrastructure alongside of it to run tests or something like that. By adding this random string at the end, we ensure that you do not collide with other times you've run the same code, perhaps even in the same stack. So in the same environment. Remember, a stack is an environment in our case. So in this case, we actually have that detail in there so that you can see we append that little bit of information. We also have these outputs as strings because this is not actually run yet. So we don't know the data just yet. So again, name of the bucket, we don't know it yet because it hasn't been created. This is just showing you that it is properly formed. So in this case, we're going to run the update and we'll see this create. It's generally pretty quick. Let's see. It's thinking. Any questions for me while it's thinking? I just see a lot of dad jokes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a bot. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm highly entertained by said bot.
Let's see. Any questions in the chat? Did you hear about the monkeys who started an Amazon account? They were primates.
Nice.
Oh,
Very
man.
nice.
No questions
Let's
for me.
see.
This all seems pretty straightforward, at least to me. So if you guys have questions, please drop them in the chat. We'd love to answer any questions that you guys might have.
There it went. And up it went. And if we were to curl that, curl. And because it is an output, let's see if I still remember this. Oh boy, this will be fun. Let me stack output URL. I think that's it. Nope, that's not it. Shoot. This is what happens when I completely have not done a live coding moment. Hold on a minute. I know that there's a way to do this. And oh, Laura has a brain. I promise. I'm trying to remember the curl command. Oh, we'll do it the other way. So if I have the actual AWS CLI, which I should have on here. Pulumi stack output bucket name, or actually it's a bucket name. Bucket name, I think. Nope. Add substitution. Oh, I know.
I'll post it.
This isn't bash. Sorry. This is not code. This is not the right thing. There we go.
Oh, nice.
So of course we're getting the right answer, which is this doesn't actually have a website configuration because I didn't actually set up a website configuration on this specific bucket. Yes, it does. It has a bucket name. There it goes. And there's the weather data. So eventually I'm going to remember how to use my own console and call the right thing. So yeah, no, please more dad jokes. Dad jokes are highly entertaining for me while I'm going through and building things. So keep at it. It's fun. Okay. So we have our little bit of data. Now we have our CSV file up there, which is really exciting. But that's kind of boring, right? That's pretty simple. Not really much going on there. So let's try converting it and sending it to another bucket with the converted data. So we're going to just create another bucket, and I'm going to give it the also created name of bucket 2 because why not? aws.s3.bucket, and we're going to call this again Lara. Would help if I made it a string. Lara.convert. All right. And we really only need to give it a name because, again, I'm not necessarily sending this out to the world to be able to go build up like a little static website or anything. We just want to know, can I convert the data? Now we want to run a Lambda. In this case, we actually want to convert our data just with any Python program. So I'm started kind of doing this. Let's go actually, let's go build that. Let's go convert our files. Where is I have a brain. I had it somewhere. I always need some kind of reference point because I like to code, but I am like every other dev on the planet, and copying is a thing. So, you know, I have reference points of old code that I have on my own. So in this case, we are going to say like, okay, I have this little CSV file. What do I want to call it? CSV. Let's just do underscore file. And we're going to tell it to, we want it to open a file, but really, I prefer with open. Let me think here. How do we want to do this? I know we actually want to dump the file. So we have a file that has CSV. We're going to go row by row, and we're going to take each row and convert it to JSON and then dump it into the file itself. So we probably ought to just open both of them. I prefer with open because it remembers to close for me, but we'll call it what we want. So open, and we are going to give it a file name. And I'm just going to say file name 1. We'll get to that later. And I'm just going to say, just let me read that file. And this new JSON file that we're going to create, we're going to call it file name 2. We'll get more creative later again. So we're just going to do that. And then let's see, what field names do we have? We probably want that. We're going to get these field names. And so fields, if I can write today. And we've got these information, which I will clean up in just a moment. But this kind of gives you a bit of an idea of what we're working on. Why is that on? Let me zoom out for a second. Right, because it's ridiculously long. Now you get to see why it takes me forever sometimes to get my code written.
No worries. I have the exact same problem. So I feel your pain as you're doing this.
You know, It's fine. Do it live. We'll break everything. What are we trying to accomplish here? That's a great question. Mostly, I'm just trying to show you a little bit about what you actually can do here with the Pulumi, the Cloud Control API using Pulumi. So what we did before, and I'm just going to copy paste some code. What we did before was just show that we can actually start using the Cloud Control API call with Pulumi alongside the older classic Pulumi API. I probably should not have picked such a ridiculous data set. This is very, very long. Yeah, we're mostly just messing around with some cool stuff we can do with Pulumi and all that. This is a really great thing when you are coming back from reInvent. Yes.
Yes.
I'm sure that this is highly entertaining to watch, that you can kind of like half listen to, because I am just going to make a huge mess. So let's, again, because we are using our IDE, let's reformat the code, make it a little bit more readable. Oh, that was great. What are you doing? There we go. Let me see if I can get that to refactor properly now. Sure, we'll take that. That's good enough right now, because I picked a ridiculously large data set because I am a nerd. All right, so we're going to readme, and we want the CSV. We're going to call that directory, and I want you to read the dictionary that I'm about to pass to you. And that is my CSV file and the fields that I just created. And then I hope I'm catching all of the questions.
You're good.
Okay,
I
good.
didn't miss anything.
Yeah, I'm double checking. So for the row, remember how we said we were just going to pick the rows? For row in the reader, well, readme in the dictionary reader itself. I want to tell you, dump that row into my JSON file, and then write that JSON file. I want to also add a new line at the end. Add a new line at the end, not break it the other way. Okay, so we haven't actually given it a file name yet because we need to pass that in through Lambda, but let's just save this. And this code probably will break because I probably forgot something. Don't worry. We will break it on a regular basis. Okay. I know you can't run PHP on buckets because it's not a web server, but would JavaScript work okay since it's client side? That's a question for y'all. I have no idea.
Yeah. I haven't tried PHP myself, but JavaScript definitely works. So yeah, if you want to do that, like, that you shouldn't run into issues with that.
All right. So we've got our bucket, and let's see. Let's create our Lambda. How do I want to do that? Are you really coding if you aren't breaking your code so often? No. Not in my world, at least. If I'm not breaking code, I'm probably not actually doing much other than reading something else. So I fully expect to break this on a regular basis. But let's create our function. What do I want to call it? I'll just call it convert function. Why not? And because I'm lazy, we're going to shorten it. Because I'm a lazy dev, just like every other lazy dev before me. So we're going to create our function here. So we're going to call it Lara convert. Sure, that's a great name. Why not? Oh yeah, I got to create my role, don't I? We'll get back to this. It's going to yell at me. I'm just going to put a quote in there, and it will yell at me later. So don't let me forget that I have to go create the role. That's important. Now, what was I in the middle of doing? Oh yeah, I want to tell what runtime I'm using. Yeah, sure. Give me the right one. I'm one of those people that prefers the newer Python if I can help it. 3.9 is what I have on the local machine, so that's how I test my code right now. But I know I should be on 3.10. Sorry. If you are on Python 2.7, I'm sorry. It's time to let it go.
Even 3.6.
It's okay, but it's time to let it go.
You heard it here first. If you're on 2.7, it's time to upgrade.
It's time to let it go. It's like end of life already, I think. I don't know. I don't pay attention anymore because I'm on 3. But I remember back when I was still on 2 and I hated my life. Yeah, Google copy pasta is the best. 2.7 is not okay. I 100% agree. I hope you all are enjoying this little tutorial and run down memory lane of times that I've set prod on fire. Because I have. It's been fun. For not me, for other people, they find it highly entertaining. All right, so I need to actually look up this lambda. I'll stop being so silly. I'm sorry. It's highly entertaining for me. I do have to go look at the API docs again and again. If you are not familiar with API docs, let's go look at this together. So can we read that? Not really. So, oh no, it should be. There we go. All right, so we have this function. One thing to know about Pulumi API docs, by the way, if you're going through, we do attempt kind of maybe to have everything in each language so that it's a little more familiar if you want to switch through. So we call this our switcher, our language switcher in our docs. If it's not in said language that you're very comfortable with, like if anything on our page isn't that way, you always can leave us a note in GitHub. It's probably from me if it's Python because I'm still not converting all my stuff over properly yet. Sorry. We'll get there. So it has handler. That's weird. So this is your API docs. I didn't mean to go through how to read API docs. If you haven't ever read API docs, this is the kind of stuff you get. And what this is more of a specification. Think of it that way. It's telling you that these pieces are optional. So when you see optional, it's optional. That should be a little obvious, but this is kind of telling you what the type is that it's expecting. So in this case, we are expecting a call to these function code args, which is another class, which we can get to down below. But we're going to be taking a look here at this handler, which is just a string, and it defaults to none. That's what this little bit here is. If this part doesn't make sense to you because it's coming directly from an API, a builder, like OpenAPI spec or something like that, generally you can continue down and get to the rest of it. So you have the resource name, which is required. That's what the little asterisk means. The arguments or the args, and the options or the ops. So in this case, we are just going to go right down here to handler because it's alphabetical. The name of the method within your code that Lambda calls to execute your function. Okay, sounds great. So in this case, did I give it a name yet? No, I didn't. So let's go import that right now. It's always built-in libraries, imported libraries, from libraries and locals. So from C, I want to import CSV JSON. There we go. And we'll get to that in a minute. So did I give a name to this thing yet? No, we're just going to run that. All right. So where is my handler? Handler. And did I give it a name yet? I will have to. I don't think I did, but we're just going to call handler. There we go. And this is going to be CSV JSON. I don't think I've formatted that right. Lambdas and I aren't always on the best of terms, so y'all will have to bear with me as I rebuild this in my head.
No worries.
So code, the actual code. I was going to just give it the file. Yeah, let's just get the file. Asset archive. Remember how I was saying there was multiple asset types? This is an archive. Christmas. And I think this is where I managed to break it before. So we're going to go try it. It'll be fun. Yeah. So we have our asset archive and let's see. I'm telling it, hey, it's locally right here. And file archive. And it's just dot slash c sv.json.py, except we don't need the .py part. Okay. Now it's complaining about something, and it's telling me something here is not correct. Which part? I checked that handler is there. Handler is there. Code is there. Is it the CPython? I think it's CPython. It's not that. So
I just realized the mute. I think line 56, just runtime, I think.
yeah, I think that's right. Yay! All right.
There you go.
We figured it out.
Nice.
Thank you. We'll come back and kind of clean some of the stuff up. And remember how I said we needed to fix that role? Let's go do that. Roles are kind of important. If you're building on the cloud and you don't really know how that works, you probably need a more in-depth session than I can actually give you. But you do need to provide roles to things because we actually care about how things run. So provide a role for the Lambda. So let's go do that. And I'm just going to go switch over to something else here because I need to go pull my IAM roles from somewhere else because this is the part that I never remember. And that's all this IAM stuff because there's role policies that come into play. And I'm not going to bore you all with me typing that part out. So lambda role. And we want to do Pulumi. I think it's a native now. Yes. Am I doing it that way? Because I'm being silly. Okay, so we do have IAM. We just don't have IAM role policy, I think. So we're able to get role. And we're going to create that role right now. And we're going to just call it Lambda role. Oh, wait. Right. Got to put my name on it. Got to stamp my name on it so when I break it and I pull down someone else's stuff, they can come yell at me. And it's assume role policy. I think it's assume role policy. Let's see if I'm right. No, that's not it. Okay. What is it in the new magical world? Since this came out in October, I am also not as familiar with it. So
it should be assume role policy.
Is that?
I think
Why
so,
didn't it
yeah.
come up then? Oh, assume role policy document? Maybe? Assume role policy document. That's why I wasn't happy. Okay. Policy document.
Was it just assume role policy in the classic provider?
It was. That's
why
my brain was going like, hold on a second. This should just work. And again, I'm not going to bore you all with that. We're going to just copy paste. This is where we get to the point of Laura copy paste something. So there you go. So we have our little Lambda role, and I need to add the role policy. And this is where we're going to switch over to Lambda role policy. Okay. No questions yet in the chat. Are you all bored? Are you finding this fun? Tell me how much I'm like messing with your brain. That'd be great. I can mess with your brain worse if you really want me to. But we're going to go switch back to classic because this is one of those cases where some of it is here, some of it is not. And in this case, role policy is not. It's very interesting. Oh, good. At least I'm not boring you to tears. That's exciting. Also, I just realized how dark it is. You probably can't see. And my chair is going back down again. Okay. There we go. Let's keep going. Okay. So we're going to create this role policy. Laura Lambda. As you can tell, I can't spell Lambda.
Hey, spelling's hard. I don't. No
At least
worries.
everybody can keep up, Laura. No worries. And they can
Yeah.
try it.
I mean,
and they
you
can
could
try
be
it.
doing this with me. You seriously can be doing all of this with me, and see how much I'm going to break everything. The reason I keep bringing up the fact that I can't spell is that I used to be an editor. So I used to tell people how much I could fix how they're spelling. And so the fact that I can't sometimes get myself to spell is highly entertaining for everyone involved. Especially my partner, who is just very much tired of me correcting his spelling. Anyway, so policy, no, not bucket policy, just give me policy. And again, let's do some copy pasta to save your, save a little bit of time here. Okay, so I've got the role policy. I've got the role. We're going to go back down here and give this role back to the right thing. Where are you? Okay, so instead of a quote here, we're going to call it Lambda role. No. Yes. Lambda role ARN. And again, ARN is resource number. So that's an ARN. That's just saying here's the ID of the thing that you're going to go get this from. Go get that, apply it here, and that's how you're going to build this thing. That's really what this is saying. What else do I need on this Lambda? So we've got a name, we've got a role, we've got a runtime, the handler, and my code. I'm just trying to think here. What do I need? Oh, I know what I needed to do. Because this is not, I don't actually want to import this. This is what happens. I'm actually going to create this as a different asset. Doop. So code zip. I'm just going to zip this file up. So again, we're going to tell this underscore or lambda underscore. Because underscore in Python before something tells it it's private. Because we don't really actually have private and public in Python. So we just kind of have a convention of underscore before it. The reason the underscore is after it here, in case you're not familiar, there is a thing called a lambda right down here. And if you just had it as just aws.lambda, Python isn't really sure what to do, and it's highly not a good thing. So we're going to call this function code args, and in this case, we're going to zip the file up. It just makes life easy. And this is just going to be our local ./csvjson.py. But we need to zip it. Did I zip it? I have not zipped it. I think I'll zip it up later, but maybe we won't zip it up. Can I just run file? No, it has to be a zip file, I guess. Let's double check that. So the old version that I did this with, I had to have a zip file. So this is lambda. And we have this as function code args. Function. Wait a minute. All right, I give in. And where are you? There it is. Okay. Does it have to be a zip file? Yes. Okay. Place in a file name is zipped to create a deployment. If you include your function source code in line with this parameter. Huh. Yeah, we're not going to do that. So I'll just zip up the code. It'll be fine. So we're going to zip up our code from that CSV JSON file in just a moment. But we have the lambda. And instead of this, there was a better way to do this. Oh, pardon me. And that's going to be, and that's just going to be passing that code zip.
I
Zip.
think you can try without zip.
Think so?
Let's try it.
Just file.
Yeah, I'm looking for another example with it. I don't think we zip it before. Let me double
Can I
check.
just send the code itself? That would be nice. Maybe instead of actually having it as a separate file. So let's learn the power of Google a little bit and try this as we go. So Lambda functions. So if you are not familiar with Pulumi and you want to go exploring some different things, let me bring this up so you can see it. This is for the Pulumi examples repo. Most of it is written in AWS Classic. If you're wanting to actually build with AWS Native, most of this is AWS Classic. So don't get too confused by the code. But we have a ton of examples. And I'm going to stop scrolling right around somewhere down here. Right there. You didn't see any of the other cloud providers down there. Shh, it's okay. But we have everything in all kinds of
What
different
other cloud
languages.
providers? What are you talking about?
Unreadable window
Other
continent.
cloud providers. You're
I'm
not
totally
there.
kidding.
It's
I'm
fine.
totally kidding.
By the way, light theme. Sorry. Unreadable context. I should make that bigger. My apologies. Thanks for calling that out in the chat. This is the Pulumi examples repo, and it has examples. You see CS is C#, F#, Go, and JavaScript. This native stuff, here's the 3 examples so far. As you can tell, it's brand new for us. And then Python is Py, and then TypeScript is TS. So my apologies, good call out. I do want to say something about the light theme. Thank you for calling that out. A lot of people ask me why there's light theme. If you are ever doing a demo for other people, please use light theme because it is more accessible for people who have problems seeing. Believe it or not, that's a study that has been done, and they've been able to tell that light theme is easier for other people to read. So, just a side note. Anyway, let me get back to my code. So what we're doing right now, for anybody joining in, hot off the press, we're trying to figure out if we can just give it code. I wonder if that's what this asset archive is. Might be.
I'm trying to find to help you, but I think you can just try to pass it without archiving.
Let's go see. So this is the part where we all go through and read things together. Yeah, it's interesting. I also like dark consoles, but I find that the longer I'm staring at it, like especially if it's late or I'm tired, which is more often than I care to admit, I actually have trouble reading it. I have trouble reading my code, which is bad. It might be why I keep breaking everything. Put that on my next performance review.
You know, I actually didn't know that because I actually default everything to dark mode because I thought it's supposed to be better for your eyes long term. So that's interesting. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's actually if you have astigmatism, like I do,
okay.
It causes twinning of the text, which is one example of why people use light themes. Anyway, sorry, I hate to like go down like the rabbit hole of odd things, but this is one of
no. This is important stuff because I mean, you know, if we're gonna be coding for long periods of time, like, you know, this is helpful.
Yeah, like I mean, I guess it just so many people ask me, why are you using light theme? Like, what's with you? And I'm like, well, there's a reason. Okay, so apparently I can actually do it as a directory here and send it up as an asset. So why don't we try that? I think that's what I had originally.
I think you exactly have that. That I say this is example I was looking before. I just remember we tried it and it's not zipped, so like I just.
Yes. Let me just. Would help if I open things in the right window. Okay. Let's see. Oh, they do it as this. Let's close this example, open a different one. We're learning about this all together, folks. This is the fun part. Which one are you looking at this one? Or are you looking at just passing the code in directly?
I was looking at the passing code directly, so
Let's-
if you want to
let's do
try
that.
that.
Let's do
But
that.
I'm
That'll
pretty
be fun.
sure what you did is already going to work without zipping.
Oh, hey, we found a bug in our example. There's an extra dot. Okay, sorry. All right, let's go back here. Let's go back to our code and get back to this. So, yep. Sorry for all of the swinging in and out. Function code args. Okay. Well, so what we're going to do is instead of passing the file, we're going to actually do it this way. So you can do zip file, and I know it's zip file, but then we're just going to pass it in. So let's take this, copy, paste. And now did it matter indentation? Not exactly. Okay. Now we are going to ask it for file names. Anybody have any comments before I keep going? Sorry. Gray is often used as a background in control room graphics where operators need to watch screen for long hours. Yeah, that's true. I keep forgetting about those. Anyway, we all learned something new today. Okay, here we go. What I want though is I need to remember how to pass in the variables that I have. I know there's a way to do this. Let's see. This is where it takes me a minute.
Python developers in the chat, feel free to help us out.
Yeah, like you can tell me where I am making a complete mess of my code. Please do.
We're all one big team here, so it's all good.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back here. Remind me, we will figure this out. Meanwhile, let's check everything else. We've got our bucket policy. The bucket policy should be correct. We've got our weather directory. We know the bucket stuff worked. So we have our Lambda. And, oh wait, we need a bucket policy for this, don't we? All right, that's what we're forgetting. We're forgetting a bucket policy for our new bucket. So shifting. We called it bucket 2 because I'm a child. Let's see here. Bucket 2 ID, bucket 2 ARN, bucket policy 2. And we're going to call it our bucket policy 2. Everything else is correct. Okay, cool. So that was something that we needed to remember to do. And I'm just going to collapse that so we can keep reading since this is so big. We know the for loop works. We know the Lambda works. And by the way, you can do things in pieces with Pulumi. You don't need to deploy it all at once, which is also nice, which is what we just did with the bucket. Okay. Dumps. And we've got the Lambda role, the Lambda policy. Okay. What am I forgetting? There has to be a way to do this. I want the file from each bucket. So this is the one piece that I didn't actually test. So this is still going to be the entertaining part. But let's talk this through. So what we want to do is we want to take the file. Whenever we get a file dumped into one S3 bucket, we want to say, okay, take that one, write a new file into the new S3 bucket that says dump this into there after converting it from CSV to JSON. That's really what we're asking it to do. What do I want to do with this? So we have the S3 bucket. We have all of that created. We really want to get the object. So let's go back here to our code. Or to our API docs. And so let's see. Wait, what's that S3 object lambda? What are you? This is something new. Again, all of this right now I have, no, that's just an access point. Okay. All of this right now that I currently have is in AWS Classic. So a lot of the stuff that I'm looking for is not named the same here. So this is part of the fun of figuring all this out. Okay, that's just an example. Random examples that we built. Okay, we have a bucket resource. Do we have any get supporting types maybe? No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. All right. Let's find my lambda. Let's go back and take a look at some lambda functions here. Can we actually tell it what S3 bucket we want to go hit? That's that one. What's this other one? Oh, hey, wait, you can. So this S3 bucket and the S3 key. Or no, that's the function. The bucket with the function in it. Shoot. Let's see. I have an example in TypeScript, but that is not the example we want to do. Here, let me be doing this up here instead of searching it somewhere else. Does this do what I want it to do? Probably not. All right. Anybody have any thoughts before I keep going? Probably not. We'll keep going anyway, but feel free to heckle me in the comments because that's always what happens. Let's see. We have an S3 folder here. That's just hosting a static website on S3. We don't really care about that. This is a C# app. Is there an S lambda function? Policy, role policy. Do we have it working against something? No. No.
In general, I think you can do in Classic as free bucket notification, and it can be lambda.
Yeah, so we may have to switch back over. This is the part
It's
where
not
we were talking
available
about
in native yet. Yes.
Yeah, so
Let me.
so where was that under again, please?
Yeah.
S3 or lambda?
Yeah. Give me a second. So I'll post it to you.
Get function, get invocation. So we're actually probably looking at S3.
Yeah, how to create back notification in the classic one, and it has a lambda.
Okay,
example.
so is this under how-to guides?
No, it's a API docs in the for classic S3.
Okay, so S3.
S3 bucket notification.
Oh, okay. There we go.
And it has a add notification configuration to lambda function.
Yeah, there it is. All right, let's just go do that. Let's see. Doesn't look like we have any different really things to the role. Okay, so let's take a look at our function. We've got our file archive, which was the zip. In this case, we're using an asset archive instead. That's how we're getting our code in there. We have our role, the handler, the runtime. Oh, this is in Go. Why is this in Go? That's weird. Okay. Whatever. There's the bucket. Here's the allow bucket. Okay. Invoke function. All right, let's copy this code. Doop, doop. And we're going to copy it. Let's see. I like putting things in order. And let's fix this real quick. We don't have permission yet, so this is going to go underscore classic. Ew. Okay. And it's not function, it's just convert function. And we want bucket 1 because that is the source bucket. Okay, cool. Bucket notification. I wonder if it's actually around because it's not arguing with me that it doesn't have it. And we want bucket ID, correct bucket. Classic. There we go. And change the function again. So we want convert function.arn. The object gets created. There's no prefix, so, and we just want to do CSV. I think I can just take this out. And there we go. Do we have allow bucket? We do. We have the right permission, invoking the function, have the right principal, and the notification. Now, let's, oh, come on. Doop, doop. Let's go back and see, do we actually pass the data? Okay, we don't actually pass the data over unless it's over in here. That'd be nice. Exports, bucket, more functions. No. Is there anything here that says Lambda function queues topics? No. Let's
You
go
wanted
take...
to drop the object this way?
So what I wanted to do is give me the name of the file that we're going to convert. For now, you know what? Let's hard code that in so we can actually try it, and then we will. Oops. Let's hard code that in so we can actually try this before we hit the end of the stream, because I know we're coming up on the end. My apologies, and we're going to call it weather data. Weather data? What did I call it?
Weather, I think.
Weather underscore data. There we go. Weather underscore data dot CSV. And we're going to open that file, and we're just going to call it weather data. Data.json. We're going to just call it that. All right. Let's give this a shot. All right. Over under, how much do you think we're about to break this? Take a guess. I feel like I'm
Do
back
you
in
have
Vegas.
export for output bucket?
Yeah, we're going to do that right now. Bucket. And we'll come back to this later. Bucket 2 dot bucket name. And I'll get the URL later, so that's fine. All right, so y'all ready?
The moment of truth.
Pulumi. All right, here's the one thing to know. We're about to do this Pulumi up. And what you'll find is that as long as we haven't changed something, some of these things won't get changed. You'll notice that it says, maybe, if I can get it to go all the way over. There's things without plans. There's no data. So there's 4 unchanged. Why is that? Well, that's the idea of infrastructure as code. That's one of the big things about it overall, is that if it's already there, you don't touch it again unless it actually gets changed. So it means that it takes less time to provision something, and you don't have to worry about breaking parts of your infrastructure that you were already doing. In the past, and this was a long time ago, I was running Ansible playbooks, and I had everything constantly getting updated every time I ran it, probably because our playbooks weren't completely set up the right way. But that's okay. The idea is still the same. So let's go perform this update and go see what we break. Meanwhile, questions, comments, something you'd rather see me doing, something that you wish came up. You can leave them in the comments while this thing is running.
You know, sometimes no comments are good. That just means that they're immersed in what you're doing. Yeah, totally.
You know, I hope it's been interesting anyway.
I feel like I learn something every time you guys come on the show. So no, this is good.
Oh wait, look. Did it work? That would kind of be amazing if it actually worked. All right, so we know the idea here. This is the original bucket. Nothing changed because remember, we didn't do anything. So we didn't have to re-upload the data or anything. Let's try, what did I call it? Bucket name 2? Bucket 2 name, because I'm very, very creative with naming. Naming things is hard. It didn't work. Okay, so this is one of those cases where we don't actually get the error from the Lambda. Whoops. But I don't know exactly what, so we have to go take a look at the logs to see. It did create the Lambda, so we can actually go take a look at that. Let me show you what it looks like on the console, because I could sit here debugging what I broke regularly. I do that a lot, but we only have 15 minutes. So let me just show you what this is. There it is. So just to give you an idea of what the console looks like, let me make that bigger so you can read it. Hopefully that's good. If you can't read that, leave me a note in the comments. So here's my dev stack, because again, I'm on the dev stack right here. This is my project. This is my org. In this case, it's my personal account. So my org, my project, and the stack that I'm currently running on. So my current stack. I've made 2 updates. It said the update succeeded, which means that everything did get sent. If you ever don't know your outputs, you can always come look at them here. So that might be a case where, let's say you're running it on a CI program. So you're running a pipeline and you just want to get the URL that came out at the end. You can do that right here. That's why that's here. We have our configuration data. This again is the same stuff that we would find back here in Pulumi Dev. So it should look pretty familiar. Mainly people use the console itself here for if you're running it on pipelines or in some other automated system. We have things like the automation API that lets you, build things for other people and then automate that away so that they can go to like a web portal and say, I need this kind of a stack, click, 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 and it just gets automatically deployed for them. So that's the kind of thing that you might see here. Here's the activity. And if I want to go take a look at the update itself, I can find out what's been changed. In this case, everything did create. It's just my awful Python coding broke. But the Lambda ran, or tried to. So all the buckets did get created. Here's the function itself. The timeline just gives you what happened when. So in this case, if you were going back to debug something, you'd be able to go back and take a look. If we were to click these, it does actually take you to your resources and you can start digging down into them a little bit. Configuration, again, just that. And how did this get executed? Oh, hey, I didn't know there was a bot. That's pretty cool. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat. Here's the resources. You can see all the various pieces that we did create and the graph view of how all of that is connected. So just a quick look at what all you can do here. And by the way, remember how I was saying how this makes it easier for people to understand how things are connected? This is what I mean. As I can see right here, there's the stack. Oh, look, that's a bucket. Oh, okay. So there's a bucket policy and a file, and it makes sense. So now I can start understanding how all of these things are tied together, which is really nice. And then we're about to go destroy everything. This is one of those things that's really nice if you're used to clicking around in the console or you're deploying everything with a CLI or something like that, and you go, oh no, did I get all of the resources that I need to tear down? Especially if you're doing like ephemeral testing environments. This is the big one that I always see. This is why Pulumi is nice, because we actually have a very, very simple command to get rid of that. And that's just called Pulumi destroy. It previews it for you first. Don't panic. I'm not about to just like tear things down, YOLO, throw it out the window. yeeted into the stratosphere. In this case, I am specifically telling it, yes, I do want to destroy these resources. But let's actually say no for a minute. If I destroy now, you should be able to see it all the way across because I made the terminal bigger. You'll see what it's saying. Oh, you want to delete this, delete this, delete this, delete this. The person who was asking about plan, Terraform plan, that's right here. I think that's what you were asking before.
Just real quick, one thing I want to add that I really appreciate about this particular is, if you're trying to destroy a stack like outside of Pulumi, and you get a failure message, a lot of times comes down to something with dependencies and VPCs. And if you're not used to it, it can be extremely frustrating. It can take forever. But because this tells you all the resources that are included in the stack, you know exactly what's going on. Because I know, like, when I was first starting out, like, I would spend way too much time trying to figure out what these crazy dependencies were. But the fact that it's listed out for you is extremely helpful. So huge +1 to that.
And another good thing is that because of that asynchronous await system that I was explaining at the very, very beginning, where I was saying this is the nice thing about Pulumi is that it has the ability to wait for things and asynchronously delete what it can and then wait for the next things. That's this right here.
Yep, 100%.
That's the nice
100%.
part. So, y'all ready? Burn it to the ground?
Do it.
Just kidding. Well, anyway, I hope this was helpful. I hope people learned a little bit. I'm sorry I didn't get it exactly running the exact way that we wanted to see it, but I think it explained a lot about how Pulumi functions and showed off a bit about the Cloud Control API, which is really nice. Yes. It happens really fast if you didn't notice. Boom. Fast things. But questions for me, comments, ask me anything, almost anything. Most things.
Yeah. I actually have a question for you.
If I can't answer it, I'll tell you.
So, we talked about the documentation. We talked about the GitHub page where your roadmap is. Anything else that you'd want people to know about Pulumi?
We're really nice and have great swag. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just teasing a little bit. So we have a video series that we do on YouTube every Wednesday, roughly. We are putting out various videos, including what's called Modern Infrastructure Wednesday. We have a bunch of videos from that. That was what Lee Zen, who was on here before me, had done, and I've taken that over from him since then. So you can see us building live things or real things on those kind of systems. We've got some live streams going on with some of my other developer advocate colleagues. So check all of that out. If you have more questions, we're really friendly. We have a Slack, so come join us in that Slack. Ask lots of questions. We like those. Yeah. Those are probably the big things, I guess. We're pretty easy
important.
to find.
That's important, for sure.
And swag.
Aside from that, with 5 minutes left, where else can people find more about you? Because
about me.
Really helpful.
Oh, okay. Other than my goofy self being all over our YouTube channel, I am on Twitter at nimbanatus.com, or my website is nimbanatus.com. My Twitter handle is nimbanatus. Before someone asks, that's Latin because I am a nerd. But you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on GitHub at nimbanatus. You can find me if you want to see my talks. Most of them are up on the internet. You can just either look up my name and a talk, mostly DevOps Days stuff, or you can go to speaking.nimbanatus.com. Yeah. But I do a lot of Pulumi stuff now, so
nice.
We have fun things to go do. If you want to, if you want to actually have me go through something specific, you'll find a link in a lot of the YouTube channels. But it's github.com/Pulumi/Pulumi TV. You can request something to get built on one of those TVs, like an example or something like that, and we'll do it in about 20 minutes.
Awesome. And then I have a personal question.
Yeah.
Do you guys have plans to support Ruby in the future? Like, Ruby is like my favorite language.
Oh no.
She said, "Oh no."
So I don't know of any plans to support Ruby. Ruby and I have a love-hate relationship. It's not as bad as my love-hate relationship with Groovy and Java. But it's not much better. So maybe I'm not the person to ask, will we ever get Ruby in the future?
No worries. I just had to ask. I just had to ask.
Well, you know
Andrew,
what?
it's open source. You can write it down.
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
Wait a minute.
that is also totally fair. That is also
Let's
totally
go
fair.
be that. Let's go look it up, because there
I
might
think
be
I saw an issue for
somebody.
it. I'm like
There
pretty
might
positive I
be
saw an issue for it in
somebody
the
who
past.
has made a community provider. Oh, look. Someone made the issue. You can go vote on it right here.
I think I actually
Go
already
ahead.
did. I think this is a while back. But
Yeah.
cool. No, this is good to know. I'll definitely keep my eye out for that.
Yeah. So definitely go ahead and take a look at that. There are a couple of community providers for languages out there. And as the registry gets more and more mature, you're probably going to find some more stuff from us about how to write your own providers, which could include a language provider. So who knows? Maybe we'll borrow you and you can have a little bit of fun building an open source provider for Pulumi.
I think based on the number of +1s, it might not be a bad idea. So
I mean, there's a lot more people there than just those couple hundred, but it's okay.
oh no, for
I
sure.
I understand. I completely understand. Someone already was giving me a lot of stuff about Rust closure. Okay.
Closure.
Yeah. Yep. I'm waiting for somebody to tell me Haskell.
Oh.
Scala. So yeah. What else can I tell you? Pipelines are fun. Yeah. Pipelines are good.
Cool. Well, other than that, just really want to thank you so much for coming on the stream. Learned a lot.
Absolutely. This was fun. If I can find my mouse, we'll stop sharing my screen and we can all see each other in person. There we go.
No worries.
Yeah, one day.
Other than that, yeah. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, we're here every Monday and Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific. And then let us know if you want Pulumi back on the show. They're always a ton of fun to have. So just let us know. Twitter, on Twitch, just let us know. And we'll bring it right back on. But other than that, thank you so much, folks. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank y'all. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, everyone.